Imagine you are running a remote Soviet nuclear base.
Right.
Height.
Ultra scope.
Oh, absolutely. It's the height of the Cold War. And suddenly, this completely silent, disc-shaped craft just descends from the sky, and it hovers directly over your ballistic missiles.
And this is where it gets terrifying.
Right. Because without anyone on your base touching a single button, a 15-second launch countdown to World War III is initiated.
Just entirely on its own.
Exactly. The entire base completely loses control of its own weapon systems. And look, that is not a pitch for some new science fiction movie. That is an incident pulled directly from the declassified files we're looking at today.
It's incredible.
It really is. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us as we venture into some incredibly murky, frankly mind-bending territory. We are analyzing the recent explosive declassification of documents regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs.
Yeah, non-human intelligence.
Yes, and the groundwork for this deep dive is exceptionally solid.
Yeah, it really is. We are examining a highly detailed roundtable discussion featuring two key insiders.
Right, these aren't just internet sleuths.
No, not at all. One is a prominent documentary filmmaker who has spent, years successfully interviewing top-tier U.S. officials. And the other is a quantum physicist.
A physicist who worked for the NSA, the CIA, and the Defense Intelligence Agency, right?
Exactly. And he's routinely advised major aerospace titans. So, this isn't late-night internet forum speculation. These are the on-the-record claims of deeply embedded intelligence and scientific professionals.
Exactly. And our mission today for you, the listener, is to basically separate the wild cultural mythology from the actual data presented by these officials.
Cut through the noise.
Right. We're going to explore the physics of how these objects actually move, examine the structural reality of an 80-year cover-up, and delve into the wildly unexpected intersection of UAPs and human consciousness.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this because, if non-human intelligence actually exists, the immediate glaring question is structural. How on earth do you keep something of that magnitude a secret for 8 decades?
It is the ultimate logistical puzzle, honestly. Yeah. And the answer lies in extreme compartmentalization.
Right.
According to the data we're reviewing, this secrecy dates back to the late 1940s, the era of Roswell. But it isn't managed by a single monolithic government agency.
Because that would leak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's been maintained by a deeply hidden initiative commonly referred to as the Legacy Program.
The Legacy Program.
Yeah, and this program is comprised of fiercely isolated elements from the CIA, the Air Force, the Department of Energy, and major private defense contractors.
And the craziest part of the documentation to me is the total lack of oversight. The insiders detail how this program operates so far in the shadows that it completely bypasses congressional oversight.
They don't report to anyone.
Right. They don't report to the Armed Services Committees. They don't report to the White House. They essentially treat sitting U.S. presidents like temporary employees.
It's wild to think about.
The mentality is literally, well, you'll be here for 4 to 8 years. We'll be here forever, so we simply wait you out.
Yeah, the bureaucracy ruthlessly protects its monopoly on the information. And the material details how a competing effort actually tried to challenge this monopoly back in 2008.
Oh, the Bigelow program, right.
Right. The Defense Intelligence Agency partnered with aerospace titan Robert Bigelow, and they started a program called OAP to legitimately investigate UAP incursions.
But that didn't last long.
No. By 2010, the OAP had its funding entirely gutted. And the way it was gutted is really telling. It wasn't because they weren't finding anything.
It was sabotage, wasn't it?
Intense bureaucratic sabotage. The Legacy Program revoked security clearances, they stonewalled data sharing, and they ensured that military pilots who reported sightings to the OAP faced severe career penalties.
Basically ruining their careers.
Yeah. They just couldn't tolerate an uncompromised group looking into their tightly guarded domain.
But, the dam seems to be breaking now. And we have to note, just looking strictly at the timeline and the facts presented in the discussion, without taking any political sides whatsoever, that a directive from the Trump administration in February mandated the declassification of UAP evidence.
Right, just impartially stating the facts of the timeline.
Exactly. And that directive led to this recent unprecedented release of the first tranche of 400 classified files. We've also had former President Obama stating on the record that there are objects in the sky we simply can't explain.
Right.
Again, we are just impartially conveying what these political figures have done and said, but it really highlights that this issue is rapidly bleeding out of the classified shadows and right into the Oval Office.
What's fascinating here is the sociological aspect of how this cover-up survived for so long in the first place.
Yeah, how did nobody talk?
Well, it wasn't just about hiding crash crafts in subterranean hangars. In the 1950s, the CIA intentionally manufactured a cultural stigma around the very concept of UFOs.
Oh, like the movies.
Exactly. They literally fed scripts and funding into Hollywood B movies to conflate unidentified aerial phenomena with, little green men and swamp gas.
Wow.
It is arguably the most effective psychological disinformation campaign in U.S. history. They understood that if they made the topic culturally radioactive, the brightest minds wouldn't touch it.
The top graduates from MIT or Caltech?
Right. If an academic studied it, their career was immediately ruined.
See, I hear that, and I completely understand how that tactic works in the 1950s context, but let me push back on the logistics of this holding up in the modern era.
Okay, go ahead.
We live in a hyper-connected world where 8 billion people have high-definition cameras in their pockets at all times. How can a global cover-up maintain its grip today?
That's a fair question.
I mean, it feels like comparing the government bureaucracy to a massive, sprawling, multinational corporation. You're telling me the rogue R&D department entirely hides its daily, highly funded activities from the CEO, the board of directors, and all the shareholders indefinitely?
That is precisely the claim. Secrecy requires absolute isolation. And by legally moving the physical materials into the hands of private defense contractors, they bypass Freedom of Information Act requests entirely.
Oh, because FOIA doesn't apply to private companies.
Exactly. Private corporations just don't have the same public transparency laws as the Pentagon.
Okay, but here's the breaking point for any bureaucracy, no matter how deeply buried. You can hide paper, but you can't indefinitely hide physical reality when it keeps crashing into our airspace.
Right, the physical evidence.
Because the cover-up is fracturing now strictly because the physical evidence and the credible witnesses are becoming impossible to ignore. But, moving from the concept of a shadow program to the actual physical data, the claims escalate rapidly.
They really do.
And, again, I struggle with human eyewitness testimony. I'm a huge true crime fan, and if true crime teaches you anything, it's that human memory is notoriously unreliable under stress.
Oh, definitely.
People swear they saw the suspect clearly, and then a decade later, DNA proves it was someone else entirely. So why should we trust these UAP eyewitnesses?
Well, we have to look at the caliber of the witnesses and the multi-sensor data backing them up.
Okay.
The insiders point to figures like Jay Stratton, the former director of the government's UAP task force. This is a senior executive service member.
Which is the civilian equivalent of a two-star general, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He has gone on the record under oath, stating he has seen non-human craft and non-human beings with his own eyes.
Under oath. Wow.
And he is far from the only one. The compiled intelligence claims there have been dozens of craft recoveries globally. And get this, at least 4 separate biological types of non-human life have been identified by these classified retrieval programs.
4 completely different types of non-human life.
Yeah, that's what the data suggests.
And the newly declassified files back up that we are capturing this phenomenon on highly advanced military sensors, not just passing iPhones.
Right, radar, infrared, everything.
Yeah. One of the most glaring pieces of evidence from this recent release of 400 files is a photograph from a 1972 Apollo mission.
Oh, that photo is striking.
It clearly shows a seemingly triangle-shaped craft hovering above the moon, directly above the astronauts. NASA apparently had that file locked in a vault for decades.
Just hidden away.
Exactly. But to me, the scariest piece of evidence we are looking at isn't what these objects look like, it's what they are actively interested in. Nuclear sites.
The nuclear connection is undeniable in the data sets. In the United States, there are multiple documented incidents of UAPs hovering over nuclear silos in places like Malmstrom Air Force Base and actually turning the missiles off.
Just flipping the switch.
Yeah. And then you have the incident we opened with in the Soviet Union at the Belorovich base, where a craft didn't just turn the missiles off, it initiated a 15-second launch countdown.
That is terrifying.
It demonstrated total dominance over the most destructive weapons humanity possesses.
A 15-second countdown to global annihilation initiated by a hovering disk. Let me offer an analogy to frame this because it's so wild.
Sure.
Humans are basically like ants in a backyard. The homeowner, let's say the non-human intelligence, ignores the ants for generations. You just step over the anthill while you mow the lawn.
Makes sense.
But the absolute second those ants figure out how to split the atom and build a nuclear explosive, they are suddenly a threat to the foundation of the house.
Right.
The homeowner stops mowing the lawn and pays very, very close attention.
That's a highly accurate way to frame it based on the behavioral data. In fact, the correlation's so strong that the documentation notes our governments have actually learned how to use concentrated nuclear assets to bait UAPs into appearing on radar.
Right, we bait them.
Yes, we know exactly what draws them out. But the question that deeply stumps our military isn't just why they are interested in our nukes. It's the mechanical reality of how they are physically reaching them.
Yes, the how. Because here's where it gets really interesting. We are talking about flight maneuvers that entirely shatter our fundamental understanding of aerodynamics.
Completely shatter it.
Take Commander Dave Fravor's highly documented 2004 Tic Tac encounter off the coast of California. He's an elite, heavily trained Navy pilot, and he watches this 40-foot craft drop from 80,000 feet.
The literal edge of space.
Yeah, down to hovering right above the Pacific Ocean instantly. The sheer kinetic energy output required to do that without burning up from atmospheric friction or causing a massive sonic boom is something human science cannot remotely replicate.
Right. And it's not just the velocity, it's the environment they operate within.
What do you mean?
These UAPs demonstrate what defense officials call transmedium travel. They move seamlessly from the total vacuum of space into the density of our atmosphere, and then they plunge directly underwater at speeds of 50 knots.
Which is hundreds of miles per hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they do it without making a single splash or slowing down. They ignore the physical resistance of water, just like they ignore the physical resistance of air.
Okay, but how does the physics of that even work? If I jump into a pool, the water pushes back. It has mass. You can't just ignore density.
Well, according to the quantum physicist in the Roundtable, the explanation doesn't lie in aerodynamics. It lies in Einstein's equations of general relativity.
Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Basically, these crafts aren't flying through the air or the water the way a fighter jet or a submarine does. They are warping space-time in a highly localized area around the craft itself.
Like a bubble.
Yes, they generate what is essentially a warp bubble. This gravitational bubble entirely separates the hull of the craft from the external environment. Because the craft is actually sitting stationary inside its own isolated pocket of space-time, and the space around it is what's moving, the friction of water or air simply doesn't affect it.
Because it never actually touches the water. Wait, if the craft is sitting in its own isolated space-time bubble, that actually explains a major pet peeve of mine.
What's that?
The photos of these things are always incredibly blurry.
Ah, yeah.
If I take my camera and try to take a clear video of a koi fish from above the surface of a pond, the water ripples and distorts the light. The fish looks blurry. So if we are trying to photograph a craft through the barrier of a space-time warp bubble, the light is literally bending around the gravity well, right?
Exactly. You aren't looking at a blurry object. You are looking through a severe gravitational distortion. And what's crucial to understand here is that human scientists can easily write the mathematical equations to prove this concept.
We can prove it.
Oh yeah, it doesn't violate our known laws of physics. We thoroughly understand the math of general relativity. What we lack is the advanced material sciences and the raw energy generation required to actually engineer a localized gravity well.
So we know the theory, just not the practical application.
Right. We know exactly how the engine works on paper. We just don't have the tools to build it.
But let me push back on that idea of absolute technological supremacy. If they are so incredibly advanced, if they are protected by these impenetrable space-time bubbles and navigating the cosmos,
Yeah.
why are they crashing in the desert in the first place? It seems like a massive contradiction. Are our own radar systems or electromagnetic pulses or military laser technologies somehow interfering with their warp bubbles and knocking them out of the sky?
The insiders suggest exactly that.
Really?
Yeah. While some crafts appear to be left entirely intact and intentionally abandoned, almost like a technological donation or a psychological test for our military, others do seem to genuinely crash due to interference.
Oh, wow.
Our highly concentrated electromagnetic or laser pulsing can disrupt their gravitational fields. They're highly advanced, but they aren't infallible when flying through heavily militarized, sensor-rich airspace.
Okay, so if these localized warp bubbles are failing when hit by our radar or lasers, What happens when they actually hit the dirt?
That's where things get really strange.
Because figuring out the external physics of a transmedium craft is one thing, but prying the doors open introduces a completely unprecedented biological problem.
Absolutely.
The reports indicate that these recovered crafts have no control panels. There are no steering wheels, no buttons, no touch screens, no joysticks. And that deeply unnerving detail is what led the U.S. government to start investigating the literal physical power of the human mind.
This is a pivotal, paradigm-shifting piece of the puzzle.
Mhm.
In the 1970s, the CIA approached the very quantum physicist featured in this discussion to investigate extrasensory perception, or ESP.
Right.
They were terrified because classified intelligence showed the Soviets were sinking millions of rubles into psychic research, and the U.S. couldn't afford a psychic gap during the Cold War.
A psychic gap? That's wild.
I know. But this birthed the highly classified Stargate project at the Stanford Research Institute.
And I have to be completely honest, the moment we start talking about ESP and remote viewing, it sounds like comic book magic to me.
Sure, it sounds fringe.
I am highly analytical and I remain skeptical. If people can just close their eyes, project their mind's eye to a remote location and see what's happening, why aren't there 100 psychic billionaires manipulating the stock market right now?
Well, the astonishing thing is, the Stargate scientists anticipated that exact skepticism, so they ran that exact experiment.
Wait, what?
Yeah. To scientifically prove the validity of remote viewing to their Pentagon overlords, the Stargate program used their remote viewers to predict silver futures on the stock market over a 30-day period.
You're kidding.
No!
Yeah.
And they made a documented $260,000 profit. It worked flawlessly.
Right, they made $250,000 just by thinking about silver. But if this was genuinely that foolproof, producing actionable intelligence and cash, why aren't they still doing it? Programs that make money don't usually get shoved into the basement and shut down.
The program didn't shut down because it failed. It was eventually absorbed and highly compartmentalized because it got too serious.
Too serious?
Beyond silver futures, the program's crowning operational achievement was locating a downed Soviet bomber in Africa. American spy satellites couldn't find it under the jungle canopy.
But the remote viewers could.
Yes. They mentally pinpointed the crash site to within 3 miles in a massive trackless jumble, allowing the CIA to physically recover the technology. And that specific event was famously corroborated publicly by former President Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter went on the record about that.
He did. This wasn't a parlor trick. It was producing highly actionable military intelligence. Furthermore, the physicist notes that a remote viewer in a strict lab setting successfully stopped the oscillation of a totally shielded superconducting quantum chip.
Wait, stopped it just by thinking about it?
Yes, a piece of hardware explicitly designed to be completely isolated from all external physical forces was tangibly altered by human mental intention.
Okay, so tie this directly back to the UAPs for me. We have recovered crafts with no steering wheels, and we have proven peer-reviewed military data showing human consciousness can manipulate isolated quantum chips. Are we saying the crafts are literally flown by the mind?
That is the prevailing theory among these insiders.
Mhm.
We know what quantum entanglement is. The idea that two particles can instantly connect and influence each other regardless of the physical distance between them.
Right, spooky action at a distance.
Exactly. If consciousness itself operates at a quantum level, rather than just being a biological illusion of the brain, then a pilot's mind could be quantumly entangled with the craft's operating system.
Wow.
These crafts are likely piloted via a direct, symbiotic mind-machine connection. This raises an important question, have we completely misunderstood the fundamental limitations of our current scientific paradigm?
It sounds like we have.
We've treated human consciousness as a philosophical byproduct of biology, rather than an active, measurable force in quantum physics.
Which means we are playing checkers while the universe is playing 4D chess. Let's zoom out to the macro level. So what does this all mean for us right now?
Good question.
If the transmedium physics are real and the quantum biology is real, why maintain the extreme secrecy today? And what actually happens to society when the truth finally comes out entirely?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the core driver of the ongoing cover-up is a high-stakes, modern Cold War race. The U.S., China, and Russia are all desperately trying to reverse engineer this technology first.
So it's an arms race.
Exactly. The governing philosophy in the intelligence community has always been, well, you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. If the U.S. president stands at a podium and admits exactly what we know about warp bubbles, we automatically tell Chinese intelligence exactly where we are in the research and development race.
And the public stances of prominent scientific figures are all over the place, which just adds to the public confusion. You have Elon Musk repeatedly pointing out that his 9,000 Starlink satellites have never once had to dodge an alien ship. You have NASA previously releasing extensive reports denying any concrete UAP evidence. Though I know the insiders explicitly claim those NASA reports were bureaucratically designed from the start to intentionally hide the truth from the public.
Right, there is deep systemic compartmentalization. Someone like Musk might operate a massive commercial fleet in space, but he doesn't possess the specific, unacknowledged special access program clearances where this specific radar data lives.
That makes sense.
But the tide is turning in Washington regardless. The sources note that UAP disclosure is currently the single most bipartisan issue in D.C.
Uniting both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, you have fiercely opposed politicians uniting on committees because they fundamentally realize the oversight system is broken and rogue agencies are operating without constitutional authority.
And the philosophical implications of eventual disclosure are staggering. I mean, you'd naturally think major world religions would crumble at the news, but the Vatican has already released official statements preparing for this.
Right, they've been very proactive.
Essentially saying that God's universe is vast and could easily accommodate other forms of life without contradicting theology. But let me push back on the day-to-day practical impact of all this.
Okay.
Even if full disclosure happens tomorrow, say a sitting president steps to the podium and says, "We are not alone and we have their craft," does it actually change how the average human lives their daily life? Do I still have to pay my mortgage? Does it change how we find meaning?
In the immediate practical term, yes, you still have to pay your bills. The global economy doesn't stop.
Damn.
Yeah, unfortunately. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the impact is deeply structural. Think about the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
We once used absolute secrecy to build a weapon that could destroy the world.
Right.
Now, we are using extreme secrecy to hoard a scientific paradigm shift that could completely revolutionize global energy and travel. Human history is full of catastrophic strategic surprises caused by a simple lack of imagination.
Like Pearl Harbor or 9/11.
Exactly. The failure to imagine the unthinkable left us vulnerable. Refusing to imagine that we aren't alone, that we aren't the apex predators or the smartest minds in the universe, could be our greatest intelligence failure yet.
Wow.
Furthermore, facing a reality larger than ourselves, a real external presence, could be the ultimate catalyst to unite a highly fractured humanity. It renders our terrestrial geopolitical squabbles incredibly small.
It really is the ultimate perspective shift. To wrap up this deep dive, we've traveled from an 80-year shadow government cover-up ruthlessly managed by the legacy program, to tic-tac crafts bending general relativity with localized warp bubbles, to UAPs treating our global nuclear arsenals like toys.
It's been quite the journey.
We've even looked at how the CIA's Stargate program proved the tangible physical power of human consciousness interacting with quantum tech.
It forces us to entirely reevaluate everything from our physics textbooks to our biological place in the cosmos.
It absolutely does. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Oh, this should be good.
We spend billions of dollars right now racing to build artificial general intelligence, trying to create a machine that can think and reason like a human mind. But if the UAPs visiting us are piloted by a seamless quantum entanglement between consciousness and machinery, is our current clumsy race to build AGI actually our very first step toward creating that exact same mind-machine tech?
That's a profound thought.
Right. By building AGI, are we simply on the path to eventually becoming the highly advanced spacefaring aliens of our own distant future?
It certainly suggests that the lines between biology, machinery, and consciousness are destined to blur entirely.
Next time you step outside on a clear night and look up at that map of the stars, just remember the map might be hiding a lot more traffic and a lot more complexity than you ever imagined. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Catch you next time.